Call back on Friday and said, we want to fly you to Philadelphia and interview. Yeah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beautiful Highlands Campus of South Florida State College and our Veterans Day ceremony. I am Eric Christensen, Chair of the Natural Science Department and U.S. Navy veteran. I will be your Master of Ceremonies today. Today we want to honor the men and women who have served in every branch of our armed forces. In keeping with that tradition, we hold this ceremony at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, as this is when the ceasefire was officially declared in World War I. To begin, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Michael McLeod, Dean, Academic Support, and U.S. Army veteran. Please welcome Dr. McLeod.
Thank you, Commander Christensen. Good morning. Please allow me to add my welcome to the beautiful grounds of South Florida State College Highlands Campus. My name is Michael McLeod and I am the chair of our Veterans Day Committee. I bring you greetings from President Dr. Thomas Leitzel and our District Board of Trustees. They are unable to be with us today due to attendance at the important annual meeting out of town. Apart from those listed in your program, please help me welcome President Emeritus Dr. Norm Stevens. Dr. Stevens is a Navy veteran, as was his father before him, and his son, akin to Commander Christensen, our MC, is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis. Welcome, Dr. Stevens. Also, please help me honor a special guest, Barry Vincent Smith. Mrs. Smith was a member of the Women's Air Force Service Pilots in World War II, the WASPs, and was recognized in 2009 with the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest award Congress presents a civilian. Welcome. Today is Veterans Day. On November the 11th, 1918, at 11 o'clock in the morning, the ceasefire took place to end the Great War, later known as World War I. 37 million people had been killed or wounded. Civilization had never seen such carnage. In the 97 years since that time, on this date, we have commemorated the contribution of our military veterans. From the arid deserts of North Africa to the skies over Northwest Europe, from the vast Pacific Ocean to the frozen mountains of Korea, from the steamy jungles of Vietnam to the barren hills of Afghanistan, the United States military has fought to ensure the freedoms we enjoy today. In the history of mankind, no one has liberated more countries or freed more people than the armed forces of the United States. On this day, we pay respect to all veterans and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McLeod. It is now my privilege to introduce Command Sergeant Major Cesar Pinzon, U.S. Army retired, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you please stand, if not everyone, you don't have to. If you, we will go into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Command Sergeant Major Pinzon. Now I'd like to introduce Master Sergeant Jack Briggs, U.S. Army retired, who will lead us in singing the national anthem. Master Sergeant Briggs has performed for 5 different presidents, as well as in Carnegie Hall. Additionally, he has performed in all 4 of the U.S. Army's musical groups, most notably as the lyric baritone in the Soldiers' Chorus.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow. Thank you, Master Sergeant Briggs. Now we will hear a few words from one of our own current students who is a U.S. Army veteran. I would now like to introduce Sean Owens.
Good morning. My name is Sergeant Sean Owens, and I've been an infantryman in the United States Army for 18 years. And to all you veterans out there, let me say, I salute you, and you are my hero. When I was a young boy, I remember me and my cousins, we would sit in my grandfather's bedroom, and he would tell us stories about being in Germany in World War II as a tanker. The stories were of courage, of the men and women The stories were of courage the men and women showed while dealing with harsh conditions and relentless enemy that gave them no mercy. As he spoke of the men and women he served with, you could see the fire still burned in his eyes. After all those years, it never went away. That was what drove me to join the Army many years later as a young man straight out of high school. The stories they shared with me many years before that had burned an image into my soul, where all I wanted to do was answer my calling and join the Army to be like the biggest hero I have known in my life. At the end of 2004, I made my first deployment to southern Iraq. The 12 months I was in country was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. My first daughter was born, and I was going to sacrifice a lot of her first, from her first steps to her first tooth to her first birthday. During my time overseas, I watched my friends, my brothers, bravely protect one another. The love for our country was present every day in everything that we had to endure. Once you become a soldier, you are always a soldier. You will always have friends and a brotherhood that will never waver. The dreams and memories of my grandfather are my own now. You see, it took me 20 years to fully grasp and understand what my grandfather shared with me. I've learned that it doesn't matter when you served or what generation you were born into. A veteran is not defined by the time he served or even the branch you belong to. When I was asked to talk about what it means to be a veteran, I didn't realize how hard it would be to put into words. But once I started to think about my family that served, my brothers in arms, it became clear to me what it means to be a veteran. It means to answer your calling. It means being selfless. It means to be brave and courageous no matter what you have to endure for the love of your country. And it means you will never be alone because you will always have a brotherhood to count on. It means you will give the greatest sacrifice that you could possibly give, your life. In closing, I will leave you with a quote said by President Harry S. Truman many years ago that is still true today. Our debt to our heroic men and valiant women and in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have endured our undying gratitude. America will never forget their sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Sean is a great representative of our college. Please join me in giving him another round of applause, thanking Sean for his service to our great nation. Next, we will conduct a veteran celebration formation, which will be led by Adam Martin, business instructor and U.S. Army veteran. Once in formation, all veterans will present arms to the flag. As a reminder, all members of the armed forces and veterans, regardless of whether you are in or out of uniform, are authorized to render the military salute. As I call out each branch of service, I ask that all veterans from that branch of service come forward and fall into ranks at attention in front of the podium facing the audience. Army.
Maybe 3 or 4 ranks deep.
Navy. Coast Guard. Marine Corps. Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, before you stand the reason we are here today, please join me in applauding their sacrifices and service to our great nation. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you.
Veterans! Up teeth! Who? Up proud! Hey! Present! Halt! Order! Halt!
veterans, thank you for your service to this great nation. All out.
Now I would like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Kerry Pigman, District 55 House Representative, and both a U.S. Navy and U.S. Army veteran.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. In years past, you would have known that I showed up in uniform typically, but this morning I showed up at Avon Park Middle School, and it was for a curriculum issue and a funding issue for schools, so a distinctly political and legislative combination, and these two worlds can't come together. But one interesting thing I came across was, why is Highlands County Schools in session today? And I had an explanation. Apparently that issue came up years ago, and the veterans of Highlands County told the school board that we think if you keep them in class today, they'll learn more about what's important about today than if we give them the day off. So it was very heartening to go from class to class. Now, we were looking at a curriculum style, a delivery method. But it was interesting to see how veterans and military affairs worked their way into the science class, into the sociology class, even into the advanced algebra class. And since I'm not Clark Kent, and there's no more phone booths, I didn't have an opportunity to change before I came over here. I wanted to just take 10 minutes of your time this morning. And this is something I've been kind of wanting to talk about as a topic for several days, but I only put my notes down to paper typed out this morning, so it's going to be a little bit rough. But I want to talk about tenacity, resilience, and professionalism. The Korean War was from 1950 to 1953 and has been referred to as a forgotten war. In fact, there's a book published on the history of the Korean War called just that, written by Clay Blair, which is a book I recommend highly. 8 years before I was born, and 65 years ago, from November 27th to December 13th, 1950, the Battle of Chosin Reservoir happened. This was a decisive battle in the Korean War. But remember, it was a retreat of U.S. forces. By mid-1950, the U.S. 10th Army Corps had advanced almost entirely through what we now call North Korea. There was a chase to get to the Yalu River, which is the border between what is now North Korea and China. Several soldiers actually made it there. On October 19th, 1950, the People's Republic of China entered that war. The People's Volunteer Army, 9th Army, infiltrated the northern portion of Korea and surprised the U.S. 10th Corps. They surprised them at the Chosin Reservoir. At that time, Chairman Mao Zedong gave a very simple order to the commander, Sung Shu Lee. And that order was, destroy all Republic of Korea forces, destroy all U.S. Army soldiers, and destroy all U.S. Marines. The general on the ground was Major General Oliver Smith of the United States Marine Corps. His combined force, we call it a UN force, but the overwhelming majority were U.S. forces, was about 30,000 soldiers. He found himself surrounded by over 60,000 regular Chinese forces. And he was ordered to evacuate that position in an orderly fashion since it was untenable to maintain. What followed was a costly and brutal 17-day campaign. It was in freezing weather. The temperature there dropped down to 30 to 35 degrees below zero. It was so cold that the morphine in the syrets given to medics froze. So if you were an injured soldier, the medic put the morphine syret in his mouth to thaw it before you could get your dose. Fresh frozen plasma never thawed. There was nothing to resuscitate in the battlefield. The grease in the guns gelled and became hard. Guns would foul. It was so cold that even the springs on the firing pins would be faulty, such that a round might not actually be set off. So jamming was an issue. The batteries in the Jeeps, the batteries in the radios failed quickly. But as the U.S. forces had advanced to Chosin, they had very reasonably set up supply chains along the way, airfields. Kodori, Hangari were two important ones. In contrast, the Chinese forces had been sent there without adequate clothing and with inadequate food supplies. General Smith is a person who famously said, "Retreat? Hell, we're not retreating, we're just advancing in a different direction." The U.S. forces were able to accomplish a good order evacuation under withering fire, under terrible circumstances. After that, the 10th Corps, the U.S. Army 10th Corps, reported a total of 10,495 casualties. 4,385 of those were U.S. Marines. 3,163 were U.S. Army soldiers. 2,812 were regular forces from the Republic of Korea force. The 1st Marine Division, the 1st MARDIV, had 7,338 deaths that were non-battle, related to cold. The Chinese forces lost well over 45,000 troops. Their army that invaded the north of Korea then was no longer a fighting force. Despite the huge losses the Army 10th Corps lost, it was able to preserve much of its strength. And the fact that I'm telling you about this today was the success story of response to adversity. As the 10th Army evacuated from Chosin south towards Hanam, which is a port, there was the largest sea lift ever accomplished by U.S. forces. 105,000 soldiers were evacuated from Hongnan and sent to Busan. 98,000 civilians were evacuated. 17,500 vehicles, and over 350,000 tons of materiel, such that the losses, while not insignificant, preserved the 10th Army as a fighting force. The greatest evacuation movement by sea in U.S. history. So why do I bring up Chosin Reservoir? I'm interested in it. I like military history. Often you can tell a lot about a people by how they respond to adversity and potential failure, how they turn that around and turn it into a strength. Today we confront conventional forces that are interested in their own national self-interest. I think we would agree that Russia and China fit that category. We understand that they seek natural resources, they seek trade, they seek financial improvement. They may actually seek additional lands that they think is theirs by tradition or history. We Americans, I believe, can understand that these forces can be met with quiet and effective diplomacy, backed up by a fierce military force. But in addition, we confront those unconventional forces that are more interested in the massacre of people of different faiths and sects, the subjugation of civilians through brutality and torture, the support for non-democratic dictatorships based on some veil of a false religion. With these forces, only the firm visage of American military tenacity, resilience, and professionalism is effective. It is that tenacity, it is that resilience, it is that professionalism that I see in the faces of our military veterans. It is a heavy burden that America bears. We have been, we are, and we will be the world's guardian. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Pigman. It is now my privilege to introduce Laura Wade, who will present a musical tribute. Many of you may recognize Laura, who has been performing with the Highlands Little Theater since the age of 12 and is an adjunct theater instructor here at the college.
Please stand or come into the center when your anthem is played. Over hill, over dale, as we hit the dusty trail, and the army goes rolling along. In and out, hear 'em shout, counter march and right about, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, he, in the field artillery. Shout out your numbers loud and strong. For wherever you go, you will always know that the army keeps rolling along. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day. Through our last night ashore, drink to the foam. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. Trust in thee, through surf and storm and howling gale, I shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, Coast Guard, we're here for you. Into the wild blue, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Action boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting the flame from under. Off with one heck of a roar. We live in fame, go down in flame. Nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. From the halls of Montezuma, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we fight for rights and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
Thank you, Laura. Finally, I would like to introduce Bishop Benjamin Carter, coordinator of our adult education special projects and U.S. Army veteran, a former member of the 82nd Airborne, who will lead us in a benediction.
For our benediction, the Warrior's Psalm, Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him will I trust. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. And all the people say amen.
Thank you, Bishop Carter. Thank you for joining us today. We will now conclude today's ceremony with a brief remembrance walk about the campus. The purpose of this short walk is to provide you an opportunity to reflect upon the sacrifices of veterans present and past. Everyone is invited to attend. The walk will be led by the Avon Park High School Air Force Junior ROTC Color Guard and the Knights of Columbus Assembly number 3203. Please join in and follow behind them as they lead us around the campus. Let the walk begin.